but we're here to discuss the investigation that led to how we got to Stephen Joseph Simcak as the person responsible for this. So we go to our first slide, Mike. This is Nadine, her husband Mark, and their son Dan. This picture was taken just shortly before Nadine was killed. They lived together at 37519 Grove Avenue, which is Willow Grove Apartments, Building 9, Apartment 101. Like Chief Schultz said, Mark came home from work about 5 o'clock on that Friday and found Nadine in the dining room, stabbed to death over 40 times, with a kitchen from the Madger's kitchen. Daniel was in the house in his playpen, just a short distance from Nadine, unharmed. The investigators found that there was no evidence of sexual assault, no evidence of forced entry, no evidence of robbery. No motive could be established at this time. Nobody knew why this happened, or there was no evidence of why it happened. They were able to determine by talking to people around the apartment complex that she was killed probably between 1 and 3 p.m. in the afternoon on Friday. The investigators at the time canvassed the apartment complex and found one witness who said, or who lived in Building 9, same apartment as Nadine and Mark. She said she saw a canary yellow car parked outside of Building 9 about 1 o'clock that day. She said she had never seen that car there before, and nobody in the building had ever seen it before. It didn't belong to anybody there. So they believe that could possibly be what the suspect drove there. And throughout the years after that, every lead that was established was followed up and exhausted. No perpetrator was ever identified. Few tips came in over the years that were followed up with detectives, but like I said, they never were able to find a really good suspect to further the investigation. In 1996, we resubmitted some of the evidence to the Lake County Crime Lab for analysis. They were able to develop a single source male DNA profile from a blood stain on Nadine's shirt. What that told us is the suspect during the attack injured himself and bled on Nadine's shirt. That DNA profile was entered into CODIS to try to find a match. For years and years and years, it was in there and searched. Nobody ever matched that profile. So in 2014, the evidence was resubmitted to BCI for blood stain pattern analysis. What they were able to tell us after analyzing the clothing worn by Nadine is that there were several circular blood drips on her shirt. This blood was Nadine's blood, and it was also the unknown male suspect's blood. What that told us is the suspect was standing over Nadine and bled on her, and had her blood on her, and it dripped onto her shirt. So either standing over her or kneeling over her, but we know it was a perpendicular drop based on the circular drip. Again, the DNA profile, since it was developed, has been searched in CODIS with no hits. Over the years, anybody on the suspect list from the initial report that we could find and track down, we interviewed, collected their DNA, compared it to the suspect DNA with no luck. And the case basically stayed cold. Until 2018, when we began working with Parabon Nanolabs, which is an advanced DNA technology company. They provided two services for us: phenotyping, which is predicting physical characteristics of somebody based on their DNA profile. What Parabon was able to tell us was that our suspect was a white male with blonde hair, blue eyes, and was Eastern European in descent. So at that point, we could eliminate a lot of people off the suspect list and not waste time investigating anybody that did not match these characteristics. The other service they provide, Mike, next one, is genetic genealogy research. So with genetic genealogy, we're able to take our suspect's DNA, entered into two databases, GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. Once our suspect's DNA is in those databases, it's compared to any user that is a member of that database and who has consented to allow law enforcement to view their DNA and compare it to ours. We get a list back of potential matches, potential relatives of our suspect. When this happened, we got several matches, but they were very, very distant cousins, like third, fourth, fifth cousins. Very hard to work with that. And what this chart is, basically, it's a relationship chart, and it shows the amount of DNA you share with different family members. For example, you share about 3,487 centimorgans of DNA with your child, and about the same with your parent. And the further you get away from you, the further generations you get it from you, the less DNA you share. I think go to the next slide. So with all the matches that we located in these databases, our genealogist from Parabon was able to create a genetic network. And what the genetic network is a family tree where the family members all share DNA with our suspect and also share DNA with each other. So we built that, or that family tree was built back all the way to the mid-1800s to John Marasco and Anna Bonduranis. What our genealogist was able to tell us with a high degree of certainty is that our suspect descended from John and Anna Marasco. So at that point, we identified all the kids that John and Anna had, built their family trees out to present day, found living descendants, and either tried to have them upload their DNA to one of these databases or provide us with a DNA sample and test it to see if they were related to our suspect and how closely they were related. But what the Parabon genealogist believed is, based on the records, we didn't know all of the children of John and Anna Bonduranis. So we kept working until we stumbled across this death record. This death record is for Steve Simcak, who was born in 1883 in Bohemia and died in Cleveland in 1934. On the birth certificate, it indicates his mother was Mary Marasco. It's spelled differently than the Marasco from the previous slide, but based on the research that we know, these Eastern European families, often when they came to America, the spellings of the names changed. But it was close enough to research it a little further, so we did, and we found that this Mary Marasco, the mother of that Stephen Simcak, was from the same part of Slovakia as John and Anna Marasco, and a record indicated that her parents were, in fact, John and Anna Marasco. So we built that Simcak family tree down to present day, and we found that Stephen Joseph Simcak lived in Eastlake, which is very close to Willoughby, obviously. Unfortunately, Stephen Simcak died in 2018, so we weren't able to get a direct DNA sample from him. So in his obituary, we learned that he had a grandson that preceded him in death. Go ahead, next one. Stephen Simcak, his name's also Stephen Simcak, but he went by Stosh. So we found out that Stosh died in Euclid in 2015. The Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner still had his DNA sample on file. So they released that to us. We brought the Stosh's DNA sample to Lake County Crime Lab to be analyzed, and Lake County Crime Lab was able to tell us that Stosh and the suspect in this case descended from the same male family line. So at that point, we wanted to see how closely Stosh was related to the suspect. So we sent his sample to Parabon. Parabon analyzed the DNA and determined Stosh and the suspect shared 2,366.97 centimorgans of DNA with the suspect. So based on that amount of shared DNA, Parabon said the most likely relationship to our suspect would be siblings. We knew that was not possible due to Stosh's age. He was born in 1990, and his father's age, born in 1966. His father would not be old enough to have a child that would have committed this crime. So the next most likely relationship would be grandparent-grandchild, which that's how he is related to Stephen Joseph Simcak. So we wanted to get one step closer to Stephen Joseph Simcak. So in April this year, we made contact with one of his children, Stephen Joseph Simcak's children, who provided us with a DNA sample. That DNA sample was analyzed by Lake County Crime Lab and Parabon. Both came to the same conclusion, that it was a parent-child relationship. Parabon further analyzed the DNA sample and found that the suspect and the child of Stephen Simcak shared 3,439.79 centimorgans with the suspect. And they said that is exclusively consistent with a parent-child relationship with a 100% probability. That means Stephen Simcak is responsible for this crime. What you have here in the middle is a prediction that Parabon believed the suspect would look like, and these are younger versions or pictures of Stephen Simcak, his Marines picture and his picture from high school. And the second from the left is the age progression prediction that Parabon had, and some later pictures of Stephen Joseph Simcak. So at that point, we knew that Stephen Joseph Simcak was responsible for this. So we wanted to find out who he was and how he was connected to Nadine or the apartment complex, what brought him there. So we found out that he worked at Lincoln Electric during the time of this incident, and they still had records from back then. And we found that in 1980, Stephen Joseph Simcak only called off sick one day the entire year, and that was January 11th, 1980. He was supposed to be in for the third shift, and he called in sick with the flu. And after interviewing family members of Stephen Joseph Simcak, we learned that in 1980, he drove a canary yellow Dodge Dart with a white vinyl top. Now, this is not the actual car. This is just a sample of the vehicle based on the description that the family members gave me. Unfortunately, BMV records don't go back that far, so we weren't able to get the actual documentation of that. So just a few little points that we learned about Stephen Joseph Simcak. He graduated from Benedictine High School in 1957. He was in the Marines, spent time in Santa Ana, California, and Jacksonville, Florida. Lived in East Lake on Sunset Drive from 1963 to 2002. Then he moved to Bemis Point, New York in 2002 until he died. Married to the same woman from 1963 till he died. Retired from Lincoln Electric in 2002 after 37 years of service. During the time of the incident, he delivered flowers for Wycliffe Floral and worked for Vid Antonio's Winery in Wycliffe. And he has no criminal record.